Hello everyone, Ron here from L.T.L Tutoring Central. And this week I'm talking about subject and predicate when you're sentence writing. And it's entitled Fix My Sentences, because a lot of students have difficulty writing proper sentences, or when they're proofreading and editing, they're not exactly sure how to check their sentences and make sure that they're complete. So to have a complete sentence, you need at least one subject and at least one predicate for almost all sentences. There are a couple of exceptions, but in academic writing, I would recommend having at least one for all of your sentences. So what is the subject? Well, the easiest way to think about the subject is it is the who or what is acting in the sentence. So for example, Susan found her ring in the cookie jar. In that example, Susan is the subject because she is the one acting or being acted upon in the sentence. In a passive sentence, it could be acted upon rather than the actor. The predicate is what the who or what is doing or having done to them. So in the first example I mentioned, Susan found her ring in the cookie jar. Found her ring in the cookie jar is the predicate, and the predicate contains the main verb. So that's another easy way of finding the predicate. So when you are proofreading and editing your work, your sentences, ask yourself those two questions. Who or what is acting in my sentence, and what are they doing? And that will help you to determine whether or not you're missing a subject or a predicate, and then you can add it in. And sometimes it's just a matter of joining sentence fragments to make one complete sentence. So another example would be, the dog was chased by the angry cats. Now in this sentence, the dog is the subject, but the dog is not acting, it's being acted upon, and the predicate is chased by the angry cats. So in this case, again though, you have your main verb in the predicate, was chased. And you might hear of a simple subject and simple predicate, and complete subject and complete predicate. Unless you're taking a grammar course or grammar lesson, you might not have to worry too much about simple and complete, as long as you know you have a subject and a predicate in each of your sentences. But the simple subject would be the base. So dog in the second example, Susan in the first example. And the simple predicate would be the verb. So it would be found in the first one and was chased in the second one. The third example I have is you can have a compound subject. In other words, you can have more than one subject in the same sentence. So Mark, Thomas, and Emily had the best grades in class. So in this case, you have Mark, Thomas, and Emily. So you have basically three subjects. It's all one subject really, but you have three items in the subject called a compound subject. And then your predicate would be had the best grades in class, because there's your main verb. You can also have a compound predicate or more than one item in the predicate. The driver slammed on his brakes, swerved to avoid a car, and slammed into a fire hydrant. I just realized that's not the best sentence because I put slammed in twice, but let's just ignore that for the moment. But you can see that you have several items in the predicate. Slammed on his brakes, swerved to avoid another car, and slammed into a fire hydrant. So you have three things that happened in the predicate, and the subject is simply the driver. And also, you can have sentences in which the subject is not at the beginning. It can be in the middle or even at the end sometimes, although that's a bit rare. So you could have a sentence like, within minutes, the students ran out of the building. So within minutes is actually part of the predicate. It's modifying the verb, and the students is the subject. So the whole predicate is within minutes ran out of the building, and in the middle you have the students, which is the subject. But again, you can make sure your sentence is fine by asking those two questions. Who or what is acting? Well, we can see the students because they ran, so that is the action. So we know the who and we know the action. So asking ourselves those two questions will ensure that each of our sentences has at least one subject and one predicate. Without it, you probably have a sentence fragment There are a few rare occasions when that's fine, mostly in fiction, because when you're writing dialogue, you can avoid a lot of rules, or break a lot of rules, I should say, because people don't speak informal English for the most part. And you can sometimes have an implied subject. So for example, if you wrote stop slamming the door, there's no written subject there. The implied subject is you. But for academic writing, you normally are going to have subject and predicate in all of your sentences. And it's a good idea to check. Once you get used to looking out for that, you'll very rarely write a sentence that doesn't have a subject or a predicate. If you have a lot of modifiers, a lot of detail in your subject or in your predicate, sometimes it can look like a complete sentence, and it isn't. So you want to just double check, make sure that you've provided a subject and a predicate. Remember, it isn't wrong until you hand it in. The mistakes can all be fixed, and so the grade won't be affected until you hand that work in. So always proofread and edit, and this is just one of many pieces that you have to watch for when you're proofreading and editing your work. Okay, a little bit of a technical video and blog this week, but a lot of my students do take basic English writing, and even some who have been writing for many years forget the rules, and so do I sometimes. We all need reminders from time to time on some fairly basic things that maybe we learned a long time ago, but have forgotten, and they're way back in our mind. So it's Ron from L.T.L. Tutoring Central. That's it for this week. I hope you have an amazing week. Keep writing. If you have any questions, send them along. Check out the website. There'll be a link below. Check out the blog. As I mentioned, there's some examples there in print, so you might be able to make use of that for subject and predicate as well. And don't forget to subscribe, like the video, make a comment, leave a question here if you're watching it on YouTube. In the meantime, have an amazing week, and I will see you again next week. Oh, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about dialogue writing next week. Again, a little bit technical about paragraphs and some of the punctuation you need when you're using dialogue. So we will see you again next time. Bye-bye for now.